Book nibbles. Big ideas, small bites. Kristin Hanna's The Nightingale is a sweeping, emotional novel that pulls readers deep into the human stories of two sisters in Nazi-occupied France, weaving themes of love, sacrifice, courage, and survival into a narrative that is both intimate and vast in scope. The book alternates between the lives of Vianne Mauriac and her younger sister Isabelle Rossignol, set against the backdrop of World War II, and framed decades later by an elderly woman reflecting on her past. It is a story that insists that women, so often left in the margins of war stories, lived through battlefields of their own, and their courage was no less significant than that of the soldiers in combat. The story begins in Oregon in 1995, when an unnamed elderly woman is packing up her house to move into a retirement home. She reflects on her long and secretive past, one that her son Julian knows nothing about. This narrative frame sets the stage for the revelation that she has carried a lifetime of memories and guilt, and as she begins to recall her youth, we are drawn back to France in the years leading up to World War II. It is here, in the small town of Carriveau, that we meet Vianne Mauriac, a schoolteacher and mother, married to Antoine. Their life is peaceful, if modest, with their daughter Sophie filling their days with light. Isabelle, Vianne's younger sister, is introduced as a rebellious and passionate teenager, always restless, fiery, and unwilling to follow rules. The contrast between the two sisters is immediate. Vianne is careful, cautious, and rule-abiding, while Isabelle is impulsive, outspoken, and insistent on defying authority. This dynamic becomes central to the way each navigates the horrors to come. The sisters' relationship is complicated and fraught even before the war. Their mother died when they were young, and their father, Julien Rossignol, a World War I veteran, was broken by the trauma of combat and the loss of his wife. He withdrew into alcoholism and neglect, sending the girls away to be raised by strangers. Vianne married young, seeking stability, while Isabelle bounced from one convent or boarding school to another, often expelled for defiance. She grows up feeling abandoned, craving love, and desperate to prove herself. When the German army begins its invasion of France, Isabelle's fiery nature finds its match in the times, while Vianne's instinct for caution is reinforced by the need to protect her child and home. When war begins to consume France, Antoine, like so many men, is conscripted into the French army, leaving Vianne and Sophie behind in Carriveau. Vianne, terrified but determined to maintain normalcy, tries to keep life steady for her daughter, even as shortages begin and fear creeps into their lives. Isabelle, meanwhile, is in Paris, restless and eager to contribute. She is expelled yet again from a finishing school for her outspoken behavior, and her father, exasperated, sends her back to Vianne. Isabelle arrives in Carriveau just as refugees from Paris begin to flood the countryside, fleeing the German advance. The sisters watch as columns of starving, desperate people clog the roads, the war no longer distant, but pressing against their doorstep. As the Germans occupy France, the sisters diverge in their responses. Vianne believes survival means compliance, keeping her head down and avoiding attention. Isabelle, however, is infuriated by the humiliation of occupation, determined to resist in whatever way she can. Their home life changes drastically when a German officer, Captain Wolfgang Beck, requisitions a room in Vianne's house. At first, the presence of a Nazi in her home is unbearable, a daily reminder of their powerlessness, but Vianne's instinct to protect Sophie forces her to tolerate it. Beck, surprisingly, is portrayed as a somewhat humane officer compared to others. He is polite, almost gentle, and even kind to Sophie. But this uneasy coexistence underscores the complex moral landscape civilians were forced into, navigating survival while living under the enemy's roof. For Isabelle, the occupation is intolerable. After witnessing the brutality of the Nazis and the helplessness of those around her, she begins to take action. She becomes involved with the French resistance, first as a courier delivering messages, and eventually as a key figure in smuggling downed Allied airmen out of France and over the Pyrenees Mountains into Spain. Her codename becomes the Nightingale, and she gains legendary status, though her identity remains unknown to the Germans. Isabelle thrives in this dangerous work, finally channeling her passion and recklessness into something meaningful. She takes risks others would not dare, driven by her conviction that resisting the Nazis is worth any sacrifice. Yet even as she builds her reputation, she yearns for the love and recognition she has always craved from her father and sister, both of whom struggle to understand the depth of her commitment. Vianne's war, though less glamorous than Isabel's, is no less harrowing. Living under occupation, she must endure increasing restrictions, food shortages, and the constant fear of betrayal or violence. As the years progress, the occupation becomes harsher. Jewish neighbors and friends, once part of the fabric of Caraveau, are rounded up and deported. Vianne's best friend, Rachel, is Jewish, and when Rachel's husband is taken away, Vianne hides Rachel and her daughter Sarah. But the danger intensifies when German officers begin targeting Jewish children. In one heartbreaking moment, Sarah is seized during a school roundup and taken away. This devastates Vianne, and from that moment, she resolves to act more courageously. She begins using her position as a schoolteacher to forge identification papers for Jewish children, helping them escape deportation by passing them off as Christian. Each forged document is an act of defiance that risks her life and Sophie's, but she feels morally compelled, the passive compliance she once clung to no longer tolerable. Meanwhile, Isabel's resistance work grows more dangerous. She becomes romantically involved with Gaëtan, another young resistor, whose cynicism and hardened exterior mask his own pain. Their relationship is passionate but fraught, as Isabel's idealism often clashes with Gaëtan's pragmatism. Still, Gaëtan recognizes Isabel's courage and potential, though he fears her recklessness will get her killed. Isabel's missions take her across France, dodging Gestapo agents and risking betrayal at every turn. She witnesses brutality, executions, and betrayals that harden her resolve but also scar her deeply. Her fame as the Nightingale spreads, though the Nazis are desperate to uncover her identity. Back in Caraveau, Vianne faces her own trials with another German officer, Captain von Richter, who replaces Beck after he is sent elsewhere. Von Richter is cruel, arrogant, and predatory, a stark contrast to Beck. He uses his power to exploit women, including Vianne, threatening her safety and that of her daughter. When Vianne is forced into sexual submission to protect Sophie, the trauma and humiliation weigh heavily on her, a reminder that war often victimizes women in ways rarely acknowledged in traditional war narratives. Yet even in her suffering, Vianne continues her quiet acts of resistance, sheltering Jewish children and risking exposure with each forged document. Her bravery, though less visible than Isabel's, is no less real. The sisters' paths cross occasionally, and their fraught relationship evolves through the war. Isabel accuses Vianne of passivity, while Vianne sees Isabel's recklessness as a danger to everyone around her. Yet both are, in their own ways, fighting for survival and dignity. Their father, Julian, estranged and broken by his own war traumas, eventually redeems himself by helping Isabel in her resistance efforts, forging documents and assisting in secret. In the end, Julian sacrifices himself to protect Isabel when the Nazis close in, offering himself up in her place and being executed. For Isabel, this act of paternal love is profound, a long-denied recognition that she was never truly abandoned. As the war draws to a close, both sisters endure unspeakable suffering. Isabel is eventually captured by the Nazis, betrayed by a collaborator. She is imprisoned, tortured, and sent to a concentration camp, where the brutal conditions nearly kill her. Yet she endures, sustained by her sense of purpose and her memories of love, though her health is permanently destroyed. After the war, she is freed, but her body is broken, and she does not live long beyond liberation. Her legacy as the Nightingale, however, endures, her story one of bravery and sacrifice. Vianne survives the war, though not unscarred. She has lost friends, endured violence, and compromised her body and spirit in ways she can barely articulate. Yet she emerges with her daughter, and with a record of countless children saved through her quiet acts of courage. Vianne's story underscores the idea that heroism can be loud and visible, like Isabel's daring missions, or quiet and unseen, like Vianne's hidden resistance. Both forms are necessary, both profoundly courageous, and both reflect the ways women fought their own wars. The novel returns to the frame story in 1995. The elderly narrator, revealed to be Vianne, is preparing to attend a ceremony in Paris honoring the Nightingale. Her son, Julian, accompanies her, unaware until this moment of the full extent of his mother's past and the sister he never knew. At the ceremony, Vian reflects on her sister's legacy, finally able to honor Isabel openly. The revelation is both heartbreaking and affirming. Isabel, the Nightingale, gave everything for the cause she believed in, and Vian, through quieter but no less significant acts, did the same. Kristin Hannah's novel resonates because it brings to light the often overlooked roles of women in war. It shows that courage takes many forms. Isabel's daring flights across enemy lines, Vian's forged documents and hidden children, Rachel's attempt to protect her daughter, even the small acts of kindness that persist amid cruelty. The book does not shy away from the brutal realities, sexual violence, betrayal, starvation, execution, but it also insists on the endurance of love, family, and humanity. The relationship between Vian and Isabel, fraught with misunderstanding and judgment, ultimately becomes a testament to the many ways love can manifest, even in conflict. The Nightingale is, at its heart, a story about survival, sacrifice, and the resilience of women's spirits. It is a reminder that history is made not only by soldiers and generals, but by mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends who, in their kitchens and classrooms and clandestine meetings, waged battles of their own. Hannah's prose elevates these stories with lyricism and compassion, making the novel not only a historical tale, but a deeply human one. And that's it. Kristin Hannah's The Nightingale. Thanks for listening to Book Nibbles. If you enjoyed this bite-sized book, don't forget to subscribe for more quick, insightful summaries. See you in the next nibble.